believe it or not, there was still more news that dropped on Monday. Congratulations to the Portland Thorns naming their head coach. Mike Norris, officially head coach of Portland Thorns, was an assistant on the squad in 2022. The Newcastle, England native is now going to be running things in an official capacity for the Thorns.
Yeah, huge announcements coming out of Portland because they've been without a head coach now and heading into a draft week. The fact that this dropped on Monday of a draft week means that Mike Norris will be involved in what's happening on Thursday at the NWSL draft. I mean, has a lot of previous accolades. He was with Canada's women's national team in Tokyo when they won gold at the 2021 Olympics. He's helped coach youth teams in Canada. He's from England. I know Karina LeBlanc, the GM of Portland Thorns, made a little joke about that during the press conference. Like, hey, just wait till you hear him talk. You can't understand a word he says. He's got a pretty heavy accent. But I think one of the coolest things after this announcement came from the Thorns on their social media was the response from Portland Thorns players. Sophia Smith, just a number of players speaking out on Twitter saying how happy they were for Mike Norris to be getting this head coaching role at Portland and how excited they were to continue working with him. He was one of the coaches, the assistant coaches for Rian Wilkinson last year that really did a lot of like the scouting report. And a lot of times, like, from my experience with scouting reports and with coaches that do them, they have this more of like personal side because they need to know individual players on their own team and what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, who they're going to match up with. And that way they can scout their opposition correctly. And then they go directly to those players and say like, hey, Sophia Smith, you're going up against this back line. This is where they struggled. This is really their only weakness. They're good in the air. They're fast on the ground. They're pretty physical. But if you check back in front of them, that's how you're going to find the advantage. So scouting reports and scouting coaches work really closely with the players. So it's good to see that Mike Norris has a really good relationship already built up with the current players at Portland. And I'm hoping that that just continues to move on and to rotate through because it's a big year for Portland. They're looking to repeat again and get back to the championship. Across the league, though, there was a little bit of other news, front office news, specifically with the Chicago Red Stars promoting Michelle Lomnicki to their general manager position. She's been with the club for what feels like forever, Sandra.
Yeah, it's cool. I thought, when the news dropped, my immediate take on it was I'm really happy that the associate title has been removed for this role and for Lomnicki specifically. She was named as an associate general manager under Arne Whistler's time in a year in which they were already trying to perhaps, change some things at the executive level and the front office level. But it was an extra tag to a title where it was like, okay, so this is associate general manager. So this means, who else is actually making these decisions? So to see that come off, I thought was very refreshing. And well-deserved, honestly, because this is someone who's been with the Red Stars organization since its very, very, very early days in the NWSL specifically. And prior to moving into this role, had already had a different role, but as director of camps and clinics, right? So on the youth side of things for the Red Stars. So along with playing as a defender for this club in 2009 and in the NWSL from 2013 to 2015, now in an executive role. And one of the things that isn't lost on me is the fact that when it comes to certain roles in this league, that this position, I would imagine, is probably the hardest job in the NWSL right now. I think when you're looking at the current state of the Chicago Red Stars, the title of general manager, I think, is probably a very challenging one. So the fact that you not only have someone who has familiarity with the club, is a former player herself, and has already done a lot of work, has already laid a lot of groundwork and laid a lot of blueprint down. Not only is she, making the choice to stay, she's done a lot of work and wants to stay. I think that's also very important to take a look at in this role. So, this is a club that has lost a lot of regular names, a lot of usual suspects, And anytime I think that they can convince someone who's already done a lot of work to stay and continue to do more work with this club, I think is a win for them. So it was cool to sort of see that get announced. And then they also announced the signing. So she's very hard at work. Addie McCain signed through the waiver wire for the Chicago Red Stars. So they have added a midfielder to the mix in Chicago Red Stars ahead of the draft.
They need some. So hey, it's a great move. I know. I like how Chicago Red Stars social media like promoted that. It was like, hey, we've got a new GM, and then it was like, and she's already hard at work, like signing Addie McCain through the waiver wire. McCain was with Kansas City for a bit, saw some time, but hey, a good pickup by Chicago. Why not? You need some midfield. You might as well strengthen it where you can with someone like McCain that has experience in the league and playing. In the Midwest, especially.
Yeah, still a young player, and I think that's probably going to be the way they operate for a little while, making sure you're getting young players who are probably looking for more playing time and want to continue to sort of grow with in organization. So we'll see what the draft looks like for them, but we have to close out this first half of the segment with some awards. Congratulations are in order for Jaden Shaw, who won the USSoccer Young Player of the Year award, and Sophia Smith was named USSoccer Player of the Year. I remember when this dropped, Lisa, you and I were texting each other. We were so excited about it. Sophia Smith, the first Black woman to be given this award in the United States Women's National Team 38-year history. Big deal.
This is a huge deal. I mean, when we saw the nominees for Female Player of the Year and Sophia Smith was on there, it was kind of like, okay, like she's gonna win, right? Like she has to win this award. And I am so glad she did, because it's a huge accomplishment for a player like Smith, and it's so well deserved. 22 years old, the youngest player to lead the United States in scoring since 1993, youngest ever NWSL MVP. It just had a tremendous year. And I think the evolution of this player also comes into play for being the player of the year, right? Like she came out of college and into the league and started to make splashes, and she was making a name for herself. But in 2022, she really implemented herself in United States soccer, right? Across the NWSL, of course, but this is a U.S. Soccer Female Player of the Year award. So it's not just what you do with your club, but it's mostly what you do with your country. But you got to do what you do with your club to be able to do what you do for your country. So the fact that she did it so consistently for Portland Thorns and then for the United States, this is a player that was so fun to watch. And at 22 years old, Sandra, we're only going to see more from this player. And that's so exciting, because the future is so bright for someone like Sophia Smith. And you also mentioned Jaden Shaw, 18 years old. This is a player that NWSL fans know very well. She went through the discovery process. She trained with Washington Spirit and ended up being selected by San Diego Wave and Casey Stoney. Then she ended up making history, right? At just 17 years old, she checked into her very first game with San Diego. And within 30 minutes of checking into the game, she scored her first goal, and she became the youngest player at age 17 to score in her first NWSL match. But with international soccer and U.S. soccer, had just a tremendous run with the U20 team and the Women's World Cup. This is a player that is really fun to watch. I'm so thrilled that we get to watch Jaden Shaw in the NWSL. I'm waiting for her call up, right, to the senior team to see when she gets in that mix. But there's a lot of talented players out there. So a huge accomplishment for Jaden Shaw.
Yeah, I remember when we spoke about it and we were going through the list of nominees, there were like two very clear winners for these two awards, and we both talked about Shaw. We both talked about Smith, that coming off of the year that they were coming off of, that they had to be the locks for these awards. So I'm glad that it turned out that way, because I don't want to know what it would have been like if it would have gone differently. So congratulations are in order to them. Very excited to see what is next for these two players in U.S. soccer.